Hello everyone. It's Katie here, and I'm just getting everything set up. So, welcome to today's live launch party for a very exciting new course added to the Abridge Academy curriculum. I'm going to tell you a lot more about that as we go through today. But just while we're getting things set up, if you're watching the replay, I'm going to add chapters, jump ahead a little bit. But for anyone who's live, while I'm getting everything set up, just feel free to introduce yourself in the comments. Let me know that everything's working fine, you can hear me okay, and maybe tell me a bit about you, who you are and where you're tuning in from. It'd be great to get an idea as to who is joining us live today. Got Ivy here from Super Teacher, super excited for the launch. Fantastic, great to see you here too. Thank you for watching. And we've got Numa Zipolo. Hi, how are you? I'm great, thank you. How are you doing? I hope you're looking forward to today's session. Okay, I can see we've got some comments coming through on YouTube. This should also hopefully be streaming fine on Facebook. If you're joining us on Facebook, please just let me know in the comments that it's all working okay. My phone managed to run out of battery like literally 1 minute before we went live, so I can't double check on my phone, which is how I normally check that things are going smoothly. But yeah, let me know you can see us okay. Okay. Well, looks like we've now hit the time, which is very exciting. So welcome to today's live launch party. As I was just saying, I'm so excited for today's session. Just a quick intro to me, in case you're wondering who it is babbling on today at you guys. My name is Katie. I am the director of Abridge Academy, and I've been an online teacher since 2013, on and off here and there. I also taught in person in the UK, China, and Japan before. I'm a qualified classroom teacher with PGC, QTS, all that stuff. And I founded Abridge Academy back in 2020, which provides super interactive, professional, and affordable digital teaching resources for online ESL teachers. So if you're looking for new interactive teaching resources, do check out the link in the description to learn more about Abridge Academy. And of course, what we're going to be talking about today is very relevant to these teaching materials, in particular, some new resources that have just been released that I know so many people are really excited about. If you've got young learners or even teens, or kids and teens who are really interested in reading stories and writing and developing their own creative writing skills as well. Okay, so that was a little bit about me. Actually, before we move on, let's just quickly see a few more comments coming in the chat. Ivy saying, all good, just finished the last class right on time. Great, I'm glad everything's working smoothly. Hi there, Natalie. Thanks for joining us. Really great to see you today. Awesome. Okay, so I'm not going to leave you guys hanging in suspense for too much longer. So our big announcement today is the launch of the Abridge Academy Stories course. I wasn't sure what to call this, additional stories, interactive curriculum. I told you a lot of different names, and today I've just gone with stories because I think that says what it does on the tin. So these stories lessons include a focus on guided reading. So there's resources to help your students develop early reading skills. There's also a big focus on storytelling skills and techniques, as well as creative writing as well. There's a whole range of different lessons available. So depending if your students want to develop reading skills or writing skills or both, there's going to be some materials to help you there. It's very flexible, so you can pick and choose between different materials, or you can use all of the lessons as a whole kind of standalone program. It's very flexible and up to you. It does fit in alongside the Abridge Academy core curriculum, but it'll also go very well with any other curriculum or textbooks or resources you may be using too. I put the link in the description. I'm also going to just pop it in the chat right now as well, just in case anyone joining us live. I know if you're watching on a phone and stuff, the description can be hard to actually find details in it. So the link is abridgeacademy.com, or if you just Google search Abridge Academy, it will come up. So if you're brand new tuning in today, do check out Abridge Academy, sign up and get access to these stories. There are some available in the free tier, and I know our free tier members always love checking out these new resources. And of course, if you upgrade to the paid version, then you get access to all of them. So more on that later, don't worry. Oh yeah, here's the link, abridgeacademy.com. Okay. I knew I had a slide with more details. Okay, here we go. So introducing Abridge Academy's new stories course. There are 36 lessons up already. There may be more added in the future. It's very flexible and I've got lots of ideas of more stories and content to add. These stories are available at beginner to pre-intermediate levels, and they focus on reading, storytelling, and creative writing lessons. They can be used as a standalone course or to supplement your core curriculum classes however you wish. So I'd love to get a little quick idea actually before I continue rambling and talking to myself. Give me a little bit of insights into what you guys teach. So do let me know in the chat if you are currently teaching general ESL, if you're reading focus classes, if you're teaching writing classes, or what you're particularly excited about with this new course that is being launched today. I'd love to get an idea as to where we're at in terms of our topics. I know I've spoken to some teachers recently. There's been a lot of interest in particularly reading related classes among young students. So it'd be great to hear what you guys are teaching. I'm just going to put up the link as well, just in case you missed it, abridgeacademy.com if you want to sign up for the stories course. Or all of the course. It's all included in one package. I don't do the whole like separate thing here, separate thing there. It's just one program. All of the curriculum is included if you sign up. So it's all included in the same membership. abridgeacademy.com. I've been actually trying out these story lessons myself. Before we dig into more details, a little bit insight into my own lessons. I've been trying out these lessons myself with my own students, and they really love not only the interactivity and that sort of stuff you get with all Abridge Academy lessons, but sort of cute stories are very relatable. They're topics that some students are quite familiar with, and they really love reading and talking and storytelling and come up with their own story ideas and all of that. So I've really seen a big increase in terms of not just, core skills like reading comprehension and that kind of stuff, but also just general enthusiasm and engagement and creativity in the lessons as well, which is something that's been really exciting to see. We've got Spence tuning in from Seattle. Nice to see you. Your thumbnail is really nice. Thank you. I try and make sure that we have sort of custom thumbnails for the videos and stuff because it does help in terms of getting people to see the content and join us. So thank you. Natalie's saying, my students have been really interested in adding writing lessons. Fantastic. I'm going to show you a little bit more detail today that essentially these lessons were a combination of reading focused lessons and then writing focused lessons. So they're going to really love those, I'm sure. That kind of gets them really thinking creatively, putting their own spin on traditional stories and developing core creative and narrative writing skills. So I hope you find these interesting. They're designed as well to be quite introductory level, with the ability to stretch and challenge students as you wish. So if they're very new to sort of getting started with creative writing, then I'm sure they will enjoy these. Awesome. Okay, I'm rambling. Let's move on. Before I show you the actual resources themselves, I just want to give a quick thank you to some of our beta testers who've been trying out these lessons. We've had some wonderful feedback already from teachers on these resources. Jillian, I know many of you guys will be familiar with Jillian. She had a sneak peek and she said she absolutely loved them. She is obsessed. And you know how much she loves her writing classes. I say she's been using this with her writing students. Ivy said she really loves how super fun, creative, comprehensive, interactive, beautiful, and tailor-made for beginner ESL students the lessons are. And I do love that very long extended description. Thank you, Ivy. So if you're looking for stuff that's fun and creative and interactive, I think that's something that really stands out with a lot of the Abridge Academy lessons. And Grant has actually been a really big inspiration for some of the writing focused lessons that I'm going to be talking about. And he said they were amazing and the children in his classes loved them. So yeah, thank you for that really fantastic early feedback from our beta testers. And I'm sure as more people get to check out these lessons, I'd always love to hear how they're going, what your students love. Also, any suggestions, things you'd like to see more of or less of, any suggestions and feedback is always very encouraged. Okay, we've got Diddy joining us. Hey, Katie, I teach IELTS and fluency to adults, but I'm here anyway. I'm going to be honest with you, probably these lessons are aimed more at young learners to kind of pre-teens, but you never know. Some adults do enjoy having a look back at some of their favorite childhood stories. But yeah, if you ever feel inspired to start teaching young kids, I'm sure you'll find the Abridge Academy lessons a great resource for that. But thank you for tuning in and showing your support. I always really appreciate it. Awesome. Okay, now I know I've built up some excitement, but just before we go into the final details, I've just got a reminder for any of our members. If you are already a member or if you're just signing up today, including free tier members, we have a session tomorrow, a kind of full-on face-to-face training session. So that you know today I'm kind of lecturing at you guys on a webinar. And of course you can message in the chat, which is fantastic. But if you want to be kind of on camera, talking face-to-face, small group, sort of private group conversation discussion around these lessons, we have a live training session tomorrow which is going to dive a lot more detail into how to teach the lessons and some top tips and ideas And we can ask questions and we can practice certain parts of the lessons and talk about how it might fit into your specific student sort of curriculum and learning plan. So if you are already a member or if you're just signing up today, including both paid and free tier members, I've just put the link in the chat to register for that workshop. When you go to the workshop page, it's like you have to scroll down a bit, but it's where it's the exclusive session for members. So you'll find that there, and that's going to be a face-to-face kind of more of a workshop around how to teach story-themed lessons, both for reading and writing. And if you are not yet a member, what are you waiting for? The link is already in the description as well to sign up for Average Academy for free today. And you can get access to a selection of these story lessons for free to try them out with your students, as well as all of our other resources, our free trial classes, our placement tests, our student onboarding materials, and loads of other stuff. So if you haven't joined us yet, link is just in the chat at abridgeacademy.com. Sign yourself up for free, check out the lessons, and consider upgrading if it's something you'd like full access to, with all of the stories and over 500 more lessons as well. Right, so links for that are in the chat. Let's have a look at these stories then. I know this is what everyone's most excited about. So we've got so far a selection of kind of traditional stories, and these are based on many popular fables and fairy tales you may already be familiar with. There are reading lessons and writing lessons. I'm going to go more detail into the actual specifics of the lessons in a moment, but you'll probably recognize some familiar titles on the screen. Things like The Hare and the Tortoise, The Three Little Pigs. These are stories kids already know and love. And the great thing about sort of familiar topics is that the students can therefore focus on developing their English skills and actually enjoying the story rather than trying to figure out the plot line or something. So a lot of these are stories they're already familiar with. If they're not, don't worry, they're also quite easy enough to follow. And most of the stories have some kind of moral or learning point. So there's a lot of discussion around the stories as well as to how we can learn from these stories and actually put that into practice in our own lives. Like The Hare and the Tortoise, well, the hare was being very boastful and thinking he's so much better than the tortoise. It's overconfident, and that's why he had a nap halfway through and lost the race. So that's teaching us to, not be so boastful, not be overconfident, be a bit more modest, and think about how you can apply that to your own life as well. So there's a lot of discussion points around the books, and we picked out stories that have got a lot of interesting conversation beyond just the usual, oh, what can you see in the picture? What's happening? What do you think will happen next kind of stuff? So there's a lot of things to talk about. Okay, there are so far 9 different stories available, and then each story has got 4 different lessons. I'll talk a bit more about those different kinds of lessons, but that basically means you're going to definitely find some resources that are going to be suitable for students at pretty much any level and depending on what they're focusing on, the reading or the writing side. And I want to start with a little fun quiz before we dive into the technical details. See how well you guys know these stories. So, because you've got already some people talking in the chat, which is fantastic. So a few of these obviously you probably already know. We're starting with The Hare and the Tortoise. Which animal wins the race in The Hare and the Tortoise? Let me know in the chat. Is it the hare or the tortoise? I think I already told you this answer in the previous one, but let's see how familiar you are with this. So you've got a note here from Rochelle. As a newbie ESL teacher started teaching private students, you help me so much with all your content. Thank you. I really appreciate that feedback. That's really great to hear. Awesome. Okay, so hare or tortoise, what do we think? By the way, there is like a 20-second delay between me talking and actually the actual live stream going through. So if there's like a wait for me to see your answer, that's why. So how well do we know these stories? Michelle saying the tortoise, fantastic. Yes, the tortoise is the one that wins the race, even though because the hare has a nap partway through. Okay, next question. What color does Little Red Riding Hood wear? Is it red or green? I mean, these are quite easy questions, hopefully, for you guys. But let's see. Gives you a little bit of insight into which stories we have in the curriculum, or just a few of them at least. Got Heather joining us. I'm coming in late, looking forward to the session. No worries. And we wanted this exact kind of addition to the courses. Fantastic. That's really great to hear. I'm sure you're going to love these stories, and I'm so excited to hear that wonderful feedback. We're just doing a quick quiz, by the way, Heather, seeing how well you know these stories already before you dive into teaching them. Okay, Rochelle is saying red. Yes, red is indeed the correct answer. Well done. So opportunity there with your students to sort of ask, maybe to describe her outfit. What is she wearing? What specific clothes? And get the students to talk about their own clothes, that kind of thing, right? Okay, the next story to feature is The Ugly Duckling. This was one of my favorites when I was a kid. What does the ugly duckling grow into? Does it grow into a duck or a swan? I feel like I should have designed these slides with more space for my face to be on the screen. I'm going to put it over here. Does it grow into a duck or a swan? What's the right answer? Ivy saying, love the quiz. Thank you, Ivy. I hope you are enjoying having some fun. Trying to make a bit more of a party atmosphere with the kind of big launch we're having today. Okay, how well do we know the ugly duckling? I thought this was an easy one. A duck or a swan, what does it grow into? Yes, Ivy's got it, a swan. Fantastic. So it's a swan that somehow ended up in the duck's nest at the beginning. Okay, and I think this is the last question. Which pig builds the best house? Is it the 1, 2, and 3 you can see on the screen? So is it the first pig, which is building a house of wood, the second pig building the house of straw, or the third pig building the house of bricks? Glass of water, will you guys? Oh, you guys have a think. Which builds the best house? This is the story of the 3 little pigs. I don't know why they're so small on the screen. I do apologise. They were bigger when I previewed the slides before. They were nice big pictures, but I think our presentation today, my screen size is a little bit funny. Which house was the best? Stella's saying the third pig. Yes, absolutely. And depending on which version of the story you read, either the other pigs get eaten or they end up all hiding in the third pig's house. We made this story quite child-friendly, don't worry, for the Abridge Academy lessons. So they all end up hiding in the third pig's house. So it's all happy ever after. None of the pigs get eaten. But yes, there are some slightly disturbing original fairy tales sometimes. Oops, I forgot to click. Third one. Yay! How did we do? Congratulations! We got them all right. Okay. So that was just a quick insight into some of the stories. As I said, there's a huge range of stories available, not just those 4, but they're all based on traditional stories that your students will be familiar with, as well as a few kind of Abridge Academy originals that will be popping up here and there. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of the stories have got some kind of moral or meaning, which gives a lot of interesting discussion points. And yeah, there are 4 different versions for each story. So you see kind of on the screen underneath my face here, we've got a pre-A1 level reader, an A1 level reader, which is kind of A1 to A2, depending on the story. Then we've got a retell the story version, and then a twist the tale version. I'm going to explain what those mean in a moment. But essentially, we've got 2 reading focused lessons, one that's sort of storytelling come writing, and one that's very much writing focused. So there's 4 different lessons available for each story. As this grows, by the way, in the future, there may be more different levels and different topics as well. Things will kind of maybe change over time. But for now, this is the main focus. Ivy saying, love the visuals. Thank you, Ivy. A question here, anything on Humpty Dumpty? We don't actually have a Humpty Dumpty story, but thank you for the suggestion. I will add that to the list of topic story ideas for the future, because that was another one of the stories I did enjoy as a child. Fantastic. Okay, so 4 different versions of each story. The first 2 are guided reading lessons. Where did I put my face? Over here. Right. The first 2 are guided reading lessons, and these are available at 2 different levels, depending on the level of your students. The main focus of these lessons is reading fluency, comprehension, and discussion. So as you can see from the sort of slides that are flicking around below my face, we start off with reading a story. So they read through the story. When it gets to that, next slide, I think is the story. Oh, nope, next slide. We'll get there. Here we go, yes. So we read the story. It's going to be multiple slides of reading the story with some comprehension questions. So we ask them like what they understood. Then there's further discussion about what we can learn from the story, perhaps. There's often a grammar exercise that links in with some of the grammar topics that are included in the text of the story. And then there's games and activities. And we end with custom feedback to your student on how they did against the different learning objectives. Now, the lessons are also designed to give you a lot of flexibility as to what sections you teach. So, for example, maybe you're not interested in doing the grammar review part. That's fine. You can skip that section entirely using the tabs on the right-hand side of the story. So you can pick and choose the different sections. Quite often I find that my students are actually already quite familiar with some of the vocabulary because they are like slightly higher level perhaps. So we skip the vocab section and we go straight into the story. Or it might be your students read the story first and then need a bit of a review of a few key words. You can jump back and forth as you wish. Okay, let's have a quick look. We've got a comment here. That's quite nice. Love the quality. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thanks. Yeah, a lot of work went into the graphics of these stories, by the way. This has been about a 6-month-long project, creating all of these stories. And one of the biggest challenges was the graphics and the images to make sure they were really high quality and professional looking and engaging for young learners, because kids really like those nice, bright, colorful characters and things like that. Okay. So, yeah, that is the guided reading lessons. And there's 2 different versions of those. The next type of lesson you'll find are the retell the story lessons. These are great for developing storytelling and creative writing skills. So at the beginning of these stories, you first review the main plot line and the characters and the setting. And then there's a whole selection of slides that show you the images of the story and a few question prompts. And then a big text box for them to write in themselves their own version of the text. Or if you want to just focus on all storytelling skills, they can say the story to you, they can narrate it, and then you as the teacher can write in the textbooks if you wish to write out their words, whichever works for your teaching style and what your students want to focus on. But yeah, essentially it guides them through with these sort of question prompts and obviously visual prompts on the screen with the images, kind of guiding them through telling the story in their own words. This is really great for sort of more flexible storytelling skills, but without the challenge perhaps of the creativity of having to design their own story and plot line. So it's a good introduction to storytelling, just retelling a story they already know, but in their own words. It's also a great way just to pick out, for example, maybe in your main lessons, you've been focusing on certain grammar points or something. This can be a great way to get them to write their story and then be like, okay, so now let's just double check all of our past tense verbs. You're going to go through and check, okay, yeah, did we get the past tense right here? Oh, that's an irregular verb. Let's correct that, and so on. So you can adapt these around what your students might be focusing on in other lessons as well. A lot of flexibility. Okay, so that's a retell the story version. You can focus either just on storytelling, where they narrate it to you and you write, or you can have both a storytelling aspect and developing writing skills as an introduction to creative writing. And the final version of each story is called Twist the Tale. Put my face at the top here. So the Twist the Tale version is essentially getting them to put their own spin on the story. It's a really great way to develop more kind of wider creative narrative writing skills. And it's great as well if you've got students who are a bit more advanced, so sort of lower intermediate or above students. So first they just review the original story, make sure they're familiar with it. Again, this is one of the reasons why we picked familiar stories. If they're not familiar with it, I might recommend first using the reading lesson and then having another lesson separately with Twisting the Tale, like use that as a follow-on lesson. So they review the original story, and then they're provided with some ideas of different twists they could put on the story. So if I actually pull up one of these, like here we got on the screen here. So maybe the tortoise actually, oops, moved. How do I stop that moving? That's really annoying. Ooh. Right. So actually in the hair of the tortoise, maybe the tortoise cheated by giving the hare a sleeping pill. Or that actually the hare didn't have a nap. He saw that there was another animal that was injured while he was running the race. So he stopped to help some poor injured animal, and that's why he lost the race. So put some kind of twist on the story that requires them to think then creatively of how that would change the plot and what would happen instead. This, by the way, I want to give a big shout out to teacher Grant, who I see has just tuned in the chat. Thank you, Grant. Grant was one of the biggest inspirations behind these Twist the Tale versions of the story. He's been doing this himself with his own students, getting them to come up with their own versions of traditional fairy tales and fables. And yeah, he's given some really great suggestions in terms of how to make these work and be successful. Big shout out to teacher Grant, who has just joined us during the Lunar New Year celebrations. So thank you so much for tuning in. It looks amazing. Thank you, Grant. Again, big shout out to you and all of your support with this, because this was, I think, such a really exciting thing that is a great way to get students thinking more creatively around stories and having a bit of fun with them. And particularly works as well if you've got those more advanced students. And I'd also say, by the way, they can come up with their own twists on the story. It's not like they have to use the ones on the screen. It just gives them some prompts and some ideas. Like, oh, what if the villain was actually the victim? Or what if this unexpected event happened? So it gives them some prompts and ideas, or they can come up with their own if they want to. Anyway, once they've come up with the idea and had a rough sort of plot line, you then also go into a bit of character analysis. So this is developing those sort of narrative creative writing skills where they're going to analyze their characters, think about their characters' motivations, their characters' goals, what kind of challenges or misconceptions they might be struggling with, and what they're going to learn, how they're going to develop throughout the story. I mean, that sounds a bit technical, but it is broken down in a way that's a little bit easier to understand for students. And you can skim through some of this depending on how much your students want to focus on those narrative writing skills, as opposed to just sort of telling a story in their own words and keeping it sort of more focused on oral storytelling. It's up to you. But yeah, they analyze the characters, they put together their plot line, and then it's sort of very open-ended sort of writing where they can write their own text. You can work with them to sort of fine-tune and improve things. There's some prompts and reminders as to how they might want to tweak stuff or what things to double check, all of that. Okay, Grant's saying, I have a student who made the tortoise the bad guy. Oh my goodness. Exactly. That's a really great way to put a spin on the story, right? You switch around the roles of the victim and the villain, like who was the good guy, who was the bad guy. Okay, what happens was actually the other way around. So yeah, really great ideas that students can come up with. And they just love the creativity and be given that freedom because, yeah, it's great for developing more creative skills. Okay, we've got a few questions coming in the chat. I'm just going to see what was my next thing I'm talking about. Oh yeah, about those in a moment. Let's have a look at the questions in the chat then. I'm just going to quickly go back to the slide that showed the 4 different versions because I think that was a nice comparison. Put a bit of context to our questions. So we've got a question here from Ivy. Are the stories in line with the Abridge Academy core curriculum? They are roughly. So the stories are aligned firstly with the CFR framework. So you'll notice that in the pictures below, you'll see that the reading lessons are, it says like level pre-A1, level A1. That's referring to the CFR framework, the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, which basically means you can easily align it with any curriculum you're using in terms of the rough level that your students are at. On top of that, I've also gone through, and if you look in the core curriculum, if you're a core curriculum, like an Abridge Academy member, if you go to the core curriculum pages, I've now actually put on the level overview pages suggestions of which stories might fit in with each unit. Now it's totally flexible. They're not required to be done as part of the curriculum, but it links in, like for example, the A1 version of, we've got here on the screen, the hare and the tortoise. The A1 version, it focuses a lot of comparatives, right? The hare is faster than the tortoise, but the hare is lazier than the tortoise or something like that. These kind of comparative sentences. So that fits in really well with one of the units in level 4. I think it's level 4 unit 3 or unit 4, I can't remember quite off the top of my head, but one of the level 4 units which has a really big focus on comparatives. So this is suggested as a story that links into that grammar point, but then allows them to practice that grammar in a completely different context with a more fun story instead. So yes, there are links across between the core curriculum and the stories. Or if you wish, you can use the stories as a complete standalone curriculum by itself if you've got students who just want to focus on reading or writing skills, or you can just mix and match, use them as you wish. Each lesson can be used as a standalone. They're very flexible. I think that kind of half answers the question. There, words. I can English, honest. That kind of half answers the question from Rochelle as well. How do you suggest we incorporate these lessons in between, let's say, a level 3 student that's busy with your level 3 course? So if you've got a student who's like partway through level 3 and you get to a unit that's about, I don't know, clothes, you might then want to do the story, The Prince's New Clothes, which is based on The Emperor's New Clothes, but it's slightly different twist on it. It's the different naming, because that then links into practice, talking about clothes, but in a different context, right? And there'll be links in the, I can actually show you, let me just pull this up. Abridge Academy, let me just screen share screen. Where's it gone? Chrome tab, dashboard. Okay, so when you log into Abridge Academy, if you're a member, you end up on your member dashboard, you see your courses here. So let's start with, let's say you're on level 2, I think it was level 2 that we were asking about. And as you scroll down, you'll see all the different units. And you'll notice I've now added to each unit a recommendation of which story might fit in. And not all of them have stories. Some of them also have other things as well. Like, for example, this unit on clothes, it also suggests a seasonal themed lesson on dressing elves if you happen to be teaching that unit around Christmas time and like over winter. But yeah, you'll notice that there are stories and things linked. here in the level overview page to give you just a quick prompt as to which ones you might want to use. As I say, it's flexible. They're not required. You don't have to do them in any particular order. You don't have to teach them alongside the core curriculum. But I find that students appreciate a bit of variety sometimes. Not that the core lessons are boring at all. I like to think there's lots of interesting, exciting activities throughout, but it is the same format every time. So this gives them a completely different style of lesson, a different way of learning, an opportunity to put what they've been learning in their core lessons into a different context and practice them in a different way. So yeah, you can find them linked here. Okay, right. Oh wait, I didn't share it. Oops. I'm sorry about that. Hang on, let me just, what on earth is going on with this screen sharing? Go back to normal screen sharing. Let me just explain that again. Sorry, I should have checked that before I clicked share. Okay, let me just summarize what I was saying again. Yeah, so if you are an ABridge Academy member, when you go to the core curriculum pages, and also I'm just going to hide your comment, Michelle, because it's covering the screen. But yeah, so when you go to the core curriculum and you click through to level overview page, when you scroll down, you'll find all of the units listed, right? And you'll notice that, like here, we've got Unit 1, My Friends, which is where you learn how to sort of describe other people. And it's suggested now this story, The Ugly Duckling, would align well with Unit 1, My Friends. Because in The Ugly Duckling, they learn how to say, oh, you're pretty, or I'm happy, or sort of describing using the verb to be. This is kind of links to core learning objectives that are practiced throughout Unit 1. But yeah, it puts it into a completely different context. It gives them that opportunity to practice their English. They've learned in their core lessons in a completely different way. It's a bit of a break from the standard core curriculum format. So yeah, we've got things like The Ugly Duckling links in with this unit on My Friends. The unit on pets, which is where they start learning about talking about different animals and things, but there's also some of the verbs and stuff they start to learn, conjugating some of the verbs, irregular verbs in this unit, like to have and to be, and I think for something else, I can't remember off the top of my head, but anyway, it links in well with some of the verbs that come up in the story, Little Red Riding Hood. So it gives them a change of context, but to put into practice the grammar or the vocabulary or some of the key ideas and themes that came from that unit. Okay, hope that kind of explains things. But yeah, there are story ones. There were also sometimes seasonal themed ones, like when we learn about food, the suggestion of like Christmas dinner as an option here. I've also, by the way, slightly off topic, but when you go to like level 5, I've done the same thing now with some of the debating lessons, because I had some teachers asking about like at what point should they start teaching some of those sort of expansion courses, how are they linking with the core lessons? Well, for example, when you've taught level 5 unit 1 on eating and cooking, you could have a debate about school lunch versus packed lunch. And there's a link to that lesson there. So yeah, I've put in a whole bunch of those sort of links to the expansion courses. So if you want to, you can mix and match a bit more, add that extra variety and opportunities to practice English in different contexts for your students. Right, enough rambling. Let me go back to hide from screen, new screen share, show on screen. Here we go. Right, trying to not mess up my screen sharing again. Let's have a look. What were the other questions? I think I got most of them. I think we're good with the questions. Excellent. Okay, so those are the different versions of the story then and how that fits in with your core lessons. I just want to summarize a little bit more about some of the other resources that are included in the curriculum. So as well as the actual lesson slides themselves, which are super interactive and engaging for your live classes with students, we also have a whole load of printable worksheets, story summaries, flashcards, creative projects, certificates, and so on, linked under every single story lesson. There are literally over 100 worksheets and resources that I created specifically for these stories. There's loads of stuff here. This is great for homework activities. Kids love using these for homework. I wouldn't send all of them, but you might want to send, for example, the sort of story summary, write the missing words to review the story. This kind of exercise would be great as a homework task. You could also maybe send them the flashcards if you want to work particularly on vocabulary. And they might want to do this actually before the lesson itself. That could be a great pre-learning, pre-lesson task. Maybe you've got students who are focusing more on the writing skills, or you want them to sort of start to develop the ability to analyze stories a bit more. You know, like how in primary school you would read a story as a class, and then they would start to make you analyze and critique the different characters and their motivations and things like that. Well, something like this worksheet to do with the character profile, analyzing the character, what they're good at, what they struggle with, what they learn in the story, and simple descriptions of them is a great way to stretch those kind of students a little bit further after they've done a reading lesson, but start to think a little bit about some of the skills that then leads into more of the creative writing kind of lessons. I mentioned earlier, actually, one good way of teaching these lessons would be that you'd have 2 classes on the story. The first class, you could do the reading version of the lesson, and you're going to read the story, have reading comprehension and discussion. Then you might set something like this for homework, and they're going to analyze a character and so on. And in the next lesson, maybe you're going to do the twist the story or retell the story in their own words kind of lesson, the writing focused lesson, which is going to use some of the things that they came up with when they did this homework task in terms of like describing the character and talking about their motivations and why they did what they did. So yeah, there's a lot that links in there. What other ones are worth pulling up? This one here on puppets. It sounds quite simple, but if you've got young learners, they really love there's puppets, there's like printable headbands and like coloring activities and things like that. It's a great way to get them being a bit more creative. Plus you can then use these things that they create to then reenact the story. So that links in with that storytelling lesson where they're retelling it in their own words, or maybe they don't want to write it all out. They're only 5 years old or something. They're not really ready for like a formal writing lesson. Well, use the little finger puppets and they can act out, here's the hare, here's the tortoise, they're running along a race, and they'll be saying in their own words what's happening while using these as a sort of tactile thing they can hold and they can use and play with. So yeah, these are really fantastic, not just for like pre-learning or homework tasks, but even in class itself when you're doing activities like that. If you're someone who teaches group classes, then these kind of worksheets allow students to kind of be working on something individually while you also have things that you're doing as a whole group on the screen. And if you're someone who is a classroom teacher, we're having increasing numbers of like in-person classroom teachers using these resources. I know most Abridge Academy members are online teachers. That was kind of our main focus, but there are quite a lot of people who are using these in school as well. Well, worksheets and things are really great if you're teaching in person because the kids can then have it printed out. They can put it in their folders, they can put it in their notebooks, and they can practice working through exercises individually. So it works really well in a classroom setup as well. Oh, and of course, there's also fun certificates. Kids love certificates, and you put in your student's name and sort of congratulate them on completing that story. It's just a little way to celebrate, and then they might reshare that with their friends, and that they might bring in more students for you as well. So always good to celebrate your students' achievements. Right, enough rambling. Yeah, printable resources, loads of those. They are linked under the story itself, and you'll find links to all of those. Okay, before we jump to any questions, do keep putting your questions in the chat. I just want to give a quick introduction to the Abridge Academy curriculum if you're brand new here. So the Abridge Academy curriculum is super interactive and engaging lessons, primarily designed for online ESL teachers. They include things like all of the stories we talked about today and a whole bunch of other resources. In particular, most teachers are using our structured step-by-step curriculum, which is essentially the idea of a textbook, but made online and much more interactive and designed for online learning with all the amazing digital tools that we have to make it more engaging in an online environment. And there are also specialist courses like debating, reading, like these stories lessons, writing classes like the creative writing lessons we mentioned today, phonics lessons, science theme lessons, and loads more. And the great thing about Abridge Academy is that then you don't have to worry at all about all of the lesson planning. So everything you need is already pre-made and included for you. You've got your lesson slides, you've got automated feedback reports at the end of the lesson to rate your students against their learning objectives and give them feedback without it taking you forever. You've got lesson previews you can send to students to pre-learn things before the class. There are homework workbooks and flashcards and other resources and things to send. So everything you need is already prepared for you. And there's a free tier to get you started. In the free tier, you get access to a selection of lessons across all of the different levels and courses. You also get access to the placement test, to the trial class materials, student onboarding materials, some useful templates and things to help you get new students if you are a private teacher and you're sort of advertising, onboarding new learners. All of those kind of initial resources you need to get started are included for free in the free tier. So do check that out. I'm going to put the link again in the chat. It's also under the video. It's abridgeacademy.com to sign up. So do check that out if you're new here. As I said, it's free, so you don't need to pay anything initially. There's a free tier, and then if you want to, you can upgrade later. Just a reminder as well that if you are a member, whether that's a free member or a paying member, both are invited. We have a free training session tomorrow. I'm also going to put the link for that in the chat. Put the link in the chat. This free workshop is a face-to-face workshop. So we're all going to have our videos on, we can talk, we can chat, we can discuss things in a small group environment. It's not going to be live streamed all over the internet. It's just a small closed group workshop, all about how to teach more effective story-based lessons. So we're really diving into the details and the activities included in these story lessons and talk about how exactly you could teach these with your students, how to get them more engaged, how to ask good questions like comprehension questions as you go through, how to get them talking about the morals and how to apply that in their own lives, maybe some top tips on sort of introducing creative writing skills to them, all of that. And it's going to be very teacher-led by you guys. So opportunity to ask questions, to talk about different ideas, to share your ideas, and try out the lessons, in practice. So that is tomorrow, the same time as today's webinar, but tomorrow. The link to register for that, you have to register. It's free, but you have to register. The link is in the description. I just popped it in the chat as well. So if you can't find it, it's abridgeacademy.com/webinars. It's the webinar section of the page of the website. And as I mentioned, if you're new, sign up. It's free. Get started. All of that. Link is in the description for that. I also want to put just quickly on the screen the link to the actual stories page. So if you're already a member, or if you just want to check out what's included in the stories specifically, I'm going to pop the link to the stories section of the website as well. Let me just also share that screen very briefly. So when you check out the stories, you'll find, oh gosh, why are there so many? Stop that share. Stop that screen share. There we go. Right, that's better. Oop, no, I didn't. Oh, I did it wrong. There we go. Messing up my screen sharing today. Right, there we go. Much better. So when you open up Abridge Academy and you go to the story section, I've also put the direct link for this in the chat. You can find out all of the stories listed here. Just a top tip, there's a lot of them. As I said, there's 36 lessons, so it's quite hard to find stuff. On the left-hand side, you see these filtering options. Please make use of the filters to easily narrow down your search. So for example, let's say you're looking for a writing lesson. You can just click on writing. You don't need to click search, you just click on writing and it automatically filters just for the writing focused lessons. Okay, and maybe you specifically want ones for more advanced students at A2 level. So you can filter again, and it's going to show you the ones suitable for that level. So you can use these filters on the left-hand side to just narrow it down by level and by the format. If you're a free tier member, you can sort specifically for a free tier lesson. So you don't need to sort of rummage through trying to find the free ones. And in this case, oh wow, we found the perfect lesson for our student who is A2 level and wants to focus on writing, and you've only got the free tier, or here you go, this is the perfect lesson for you. So you can narrow down with the filters on the left-hand side. And there's also a keyword search if you're looking for a specific story and you already know which one you want, you can just search for relevant keywords. Plus reset to reset the search. I just want to show that on the screen because a few people got a bit confused by that. I'm trying to make this a bit more intuitive for people because as more stories get added, it becomes even more difficult to find things. But hopefully this search makes it a bit easier just to narrow down the results and get the lessons that you're looking for. Okay. Right, I am going to pop across to the chat. I feel like I talked a lot today, so thank you so much everyone for listening. I hope you found this exciting. I'm very excited to announce all these stories to you guys, so thank you so much everyone for joining. I'm just going to have a quick look if there's any questions in the chat. Do feel free to pop your questions in the chat if you've got anything you want to ask about the stories. And of course, if you're a member, I would love to see you at the workshop tomorrow for a bit more kind of face-to-face discussion on things. But let me know in the chat if you've got any questions. Grant saying, this looks amazing. Thank you, Grant. It's really great to hear. Yeah, I think it's mostly just all my links showing, going through. Excellent. Did I miss any questions earlier? I think I might have missed one or two. Might be saying she loves the visuals. Thank you, Ivy. Love the quiz. Yes. I hope you guys had a bit of fun there with a little quiz partway through today's session. See if I've missed any questions. Not sure I mentioned this earlier, called this one up earlier, but thank you, Natalie, for saying she was interested in the writing lesson specifically. I did very briefly mention this as we went through. If your students are just getting started with the writing, I would recommend maybe reading the story first, then doing some of those worksheets that relate to certain writing, so narrative writing skills, things like analysing the characters or writing out the story in their own words, that kind of thing. And then having another follow-on lesson using either the retell the story, where they write it out in their own words using the question prompts and the images, or the twist the tale if they're a bit more advanced and you know they can kind of stretch them a bit more creatively. And with twist the tale, they're then putting their own spin on the story, and it really focuses a bit more formally on those narrative writing skills. So that's a few top tips if you just want to introduce your students to creative writing. It's a great way to sort of gently ease them in from reading a story and retelling it and then creating their own story, that kind of approach. Okay. I'll be saying, love the grid preview thumbnail. super easy to grab a lesson on the go. That's great to hear. Yes. Yeah, make sure that hopefully these images make it kind of clear and easy to see, because I know sometimes it's hard to find lessons, and particularly if you're like mid-class and want to pull up a story because it's time to add a bit more, change up the lesson perhaps. Hopefully the images and things make it easy to quickly see. Oh, look, I can see a hare and a tortoise in the picture. Nice and easy to see what you're looking at. Thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I hope you found today's session super exciting and insightful. So thank you for making these amazing lessons. Looking forward to using them. Thank you, Ivy. And Ivy's already beta tested some of these lessons, so I really appreciate all of your feedback and insights. It's been absolutely fantastic hearing from you guys. Okay, I might wrap things up here then. I'm just going to go back to what I was saying earlier. Would love to see as many of you as possible in tomorrow's workshop. So if you're a member, including free members, welcome to register for tomorrow's training session. The link is in the description, it's in the chat, to join us tomorrow. And that's going to be a face-to-face workshop, ask questions, work through things in a small group kind of discussion. And if you're brand new here, do sign up for Abridge Academy for free to check out some of these lessons and a whole bunch of other things for online ESL teachers. Okay, well, that is, I think, everything for today. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I really appreciate all of your great questions and all your great engagement in the chat. I am really excited. It's been like 6 months working on these lessons. I'm super excited to launch these for you guys. If you've got any feedback or insights or suggestions on more stories you'd like to see, please do reach out. I'd love to hear from you guys, whether that's, let me know that your lesson went really well and that kind of thing, or a top tip or a suggestion or something you'd like to see changed. Always really appreciate any feedback and insights. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And I'll let you guys go. So have a great rest of your day or great evening. If you're here in the UK kind of time zone, it's just getting to the evening now. But enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy your evening, and hope to see as many of you as possible in tomorrow's member workshop. So have a great evening.